Hobbes, so Hobbes is going to be focusing on material bodies. He's going to come up with two different bodies. There are natural bodies, which is the study of natural philosophy. Today we call it science. Science studies natural bodies. And there's also the commonwealth, and civil philosophy is going to study the commonwealth. So we have natural philosophy, science, and civil philosophy, what today is more in line with politics and or ethics. So civic philosophy, this study of the commonwealth, is subdivided into ethics, our dispositions and affections, how it is that we should act, that's ethics, and politics, our civil duties. Remember the time in which Hobbes was living? Do you remember those great astronomical discoveries that we were making? Galileo is insisting that the earth moves. How crazy is that the earth moves? If you look at the sun, you can tell that it's the sun that's moving, and yet Galileo is suggesting that it's the earth that's moving. The sun is actually staying still. And when you see the sun moving, what's actually happening? You're the one who's moving. Follow me? That sun is staying still. When you think the sun is moving, the sun's really not moving. You're moving. That was Galileo. We were making some crazy, incredible discoveries at that time. And that the earth was not the center of the universe. All of these ideas were affecting us. And so what happens is a person like Hobbes then takes these advances in astronomy, and those made him believe that if we understood humans in the same way that we understood the stars, in the same ways that we understood math, then there would be no more war on this earth. If only we could understand ourselves as well as we understood squares and circles. How do we do that? He famously said, "Experiences concludeth nothing universally." Think about that for a moment. Your experiences are your experiences. They're not my experiences. They're not his experiences. They're not her experiences. They're your experiences. What does it mean, concludeth nothing universally? Universal is something that we can all agree to. Wait a minute. How are we? Is it possible for all 7 billion people on this earth to ever agree to any one thing, anything? You say that table is brown. What does the colorblind person among us say? The table is brown. The table is not brown. He said, but science, which does conclude universally, is based on what? Sense experience. How did Galileo come to the conclusion that the sun was staying still and it was actually us who were moving? It was sense experience. He said, when we proceed from cause to effect, or from effect to cause, we attain knowledge only of possible causes and possible effects. The only certain knowledge we attain is of the implications of propositions. For instance, if A implies B, then if A is true, B is true. It's fascinating because all we see, we're just taking these things in from the senses, and it's sort of like every moment is just another photograph of that table. And so even though I turn my head, I have this idea of what that table's like, but that table's no longer in my sense perception. So for all I know, that table could not be there. Follow me? We all know how Deacon Cleophas is. He may have just taken that table out the door without me hearing it. Philosophy that is concerned with necessary causality. Causality consists in one body producing motion in another body. I was created by something else. Thus there can be no creation out of nothing, creatio ex nihilo, because that just doesn't make sense. You can't make something out of nothing. It takes something material to cause some other material thing to move. Animals have two kinds of motions. Humans are animals too. We lump ourselves with animals. What are the two types of motions we had? We talked about this slightly last week. There are some actions that we do that we don't even think about doing, like digesting. Have you thought recently about how it was that you digested lunch or breakfast today? Thank God we didn't have to think about that, right? Okay, stomach, digest my lunch. No, your body just does certain things naturally. Your body pulses blood throughout it. Thank God we don't have to think about it. Oh, I forgot to pump my blood today. Right? I forgot to pump my blood last minute. Breathing. Thank God we don't have to remember to breathe. You know, I went to sleep last night and I forgot to breathe. Right? So those are vital motions. Vital motions then are things that we don't have to think about doing. They're just things that our body does naturally. They include things like breathing, circulating blood, nutrition and excretion. Other motions that don't require conscious effort, those are vital motions, things that our body automatically does. But then there are things that we choose to do. We call those voluntary motions. Voluntary, from the Latin voluntas, which means to will. When you will to do something, when you desire, when you do something, then that's a voluntary motion. Those are the motions that we imagine and set in action. Okay, he says that there are two. Okay, we take those voluntary actions, those things that we do, and he breaks them into two different types. There are those things that we are attracted to, that we move toward. We call that our appetite or our desire. There are certain things that I desire. I'm getting thirsty. Oh, I'm moving toward the idea of that bottle of water. I'm attracted to it. There are also things that we have an aversion to. So things that are not good for us, we naturally avert those, right? If given a choice between drinking water or drinking poison, which do you think I'm going to drink? Probably the water. Ooh, all that's based on experience. The first humans who didn't know and who tried drinking the poison, got news for you, we learned from them. Like recent videos I see on Facebook of like people who like have all sorts of fireworks that they like strap to their head and then they'll like die as a result. And it's like, okay, we learn from these people, right? So there are two motions, one toward the good things that we see. We move towards the good things, we move away from the bad things, and we start giving those things labels. The things we move toward are good, things that we move away from are bad or evil. The challenge then is that what we move toward or what we move away from, it all depends on you. It's all relative. It's all subjective. Did you ever notice that? The one thing in this world I cannot understand to this very day is how people can move toward raw coconut. Am I the only one in this room who shares an aversion to coconut? You follow me? There's some people who are attracted to coconut. You put coconut all over a cake and they are all over it. They're attracted to it. They call that good. Good coconut is for me an oxymoron. For those of us who don't like coconut then, what happens? We share an aversion to coconut, which simply means that we see the coconut and we're going in the other direction. Right?
But the coconut make you ill?
Excuse me?
Did the coconut make you ill?
Interesting. So there is something about that experience of coconut for each person. Every person has his or her experience of coconut. Obviously I had my experience of coconut where I tried coconut, obviously. And there was just something about coconut that I'm happy to avoid in the future. Anyone who's had that same experience of anything, whether it's coconut or any other experience, think of that person that you avoid at work or in your family. Why do you avoid that person? Based on whatever bad experience you've had of that person, with whatever mood he or she had at that time that it triggered you, right? The things that we move toward are good, those good people in our lives. Those people that we move away from, bad or evil. So in the common, how interesting that we all can't agree on what's good or what's bad. Can you imagine making a law about coconut being good or bad for us? Everyone must eat coconut in this room? Or, make it, Hobbes is saying, we can't agree on, there are a lot of things that we can't agree on. They're not universal. The challenge is that in order to get along, we have to have someone decide what's good and what's bad. Which brings us to the idea of the commonwealth.